Since Darksiders 3 was recently released, I thought it would be a good idea to jump back to the original, just to see if it still holds up to scrutiny. The game initially released back in 2010 and was odd as hell. Much has changed in gaming since, and some mechanics that were beloved are now frowned upon. So let's see if it's as good as everyone remembers, or if it's just a game that's stuck in the past. What's happening? Mattmade here, giving my review on Darksiders, the warmastered edition. Darksiders is grim. It starts off with the literal apocalypse and the coming of war, one of the four horsemen and the main character of this game. You're summoned thinking that the end times have come and that the seals have been broken, only to find out that you've been tricked and used. War is then beaten up by Lythos, that titan from Kingdom Hearts, and called back to be judged by your masters, the statues from the Legends of the Hidden Temple. Didn't expect that throwback, huh? Anyway, he vows to find the cause of why he was summoned, and the three Moai allow it. They do, however, strip him of most of his power and give him a guardian, the Joker, aka Mark Hamill. It's a pretty straightforward plot and does a decent job of setting the stakes and giving a reason for not only War's weakness, but why he is on Earth in the first place. The game has your standard hack and slash mechanics. You mash a button to do different moves and you get weapons along your way. You start off with War's giant sword, Chaos Eater, which has also been stripped of its power. You have your basic 3 to 4 hit combos, as well as a dash that allows you to dodge enemies' attacks. The dodge is very important since you are so frail and weak at the start. War even has a bit of trouble taking down basic enemies. He's pretty much all bark and no bite. As you progress through the game, you get new abilities and become stronger. You either get these new abilities through the story or from fighting and gaining experience. You can also purchase upgrades from Vulgrim, the demonic shopkeeper. You use souls as currency, which is metal as hell and a bit twisted. The souls are gained through defeating enemies, finding chests, and can even be found in some objects in the world. Don't know what you're doing there, little soul, but I need a new move, so you're coming with me. The upgrades can be acquired at a decent pace and keep the game feeling fresh for the most part. Aside from your main sword, you're also able to get a few other weapons. The one that stands out the most has to be Death's Scythe. Not the Gundam, the actual weapon. It's cool looking and has great range when you need to keep an enemy at bay. Once you buy it, you also unlock the abilities in Vulgrim's shop. You can then do some pretty cool combos switching between the sword, the scythe, and a few other weapons you get. The game's controls are a bit funky. The camera is over War's shoulder and pulled back so that you can see the enemies coming. However, when you get to the platforming parts where you have to climb and jump to other platforms or ledges, the camera can get a bit mixed up and you can jump to your death. It's a bit frustrating and requires you to slow down and adjust the camera so that you see where you're jumping and make sure that you're positioned correctly. There is a really weird mechanic in the game, however, and this could just be because of when it came out. When you pick up an object, whether it takes 1 or 2 hands to carry, you cannot double jump or dash. I could understand this if you're carrying around a car or another large object, but if I have a bomb in one hand, dear God, why can I not jump or dash or grab a ledge? It's infuriating to know I have a free hand and not be able to do anything with it. Another gripe I have with the game are some of the areas and tasks they have you do in order to move on. For instance, instead of fighting your way through the temple to get to Tiamat, one of the bosses, you instead need to unlock all sorts of doors and do specific tasks in order to progress a bit. Also, when you need to move on to the stone golems that block your path, you will have to destroy 4 pillars, and each pillar has a specific type of fight, like kill X number of enemies by countering them before time runs out. It really feels like this was to pad the playtime instead of adding a great experience to the game. It wastes so much time and doesn't add much to the experience other than being frustrating and exhausting. The boss fights aren't too bad. They usually boil down to a rule of 3 and you can take them down pretty quickly if you play well. They are also really satisfying. You get up close and personal and take them down with a flurry of sword and scythe strikes mixed in with whatever gimmick that boss has. It's fun and it's one of the game's bright spots. Too bad getting to the bosses can be such a chore at times. Aesthetically, the game is really cool. It takes inspiration from Christianity, hence the apocalypse, and everything has some sort of religious undertone or tie. From the plot to the setting, everything pulls heavily on religion. The visuals are a bit dated even in the warmastered edition. You can tell this game was made way back when with some of the backgrounds and how the characters look and interact. They aren't bad by any means, but aren't the sharpest by today's standards. However, they are more than serviceable. The backgrounds and vistas can come off as a bit samey and bland, but after an apocalypse, what could you expect but death and destruction around every corner? War looks great. He's the embodiment of angst and edgy as hell. He has a giant arm gauntlet with a skull inlaid in the back of the hand. It's the most metal thing ever and I love it. Combine that with his blood red hood and his penchant for talking trash, and you have my kind of character. After a certain point in the game, you also get access to his chaos form, which is a giant lava demon that barrels through anything in its way. Aside from War, the other characters are memorable as well. Vulgrim is creepy and decrepit, Oriel the angel looks strong and powerful, and Samael the demon looks cool as hell with his upside down wings. Not sure how those things function, but they look cool as hell. Each of the supporting characters leave an impression, and their designs are impressive and well thought out. To this day, they remain some of the coolest looking characters that I have seen in a game. The locales are all varied and different. There aren't a ton of them, maybe about 4 or 5, and they break down to your basic forest area, temple area, underground area, etc. They feel empty and are a bit uninteresting. They are void of all life, other than a few enemies that you need to take down in order to move on. Again, I know this is a post-apocalyptic world, however it does feel really desolate. The game's music isn't too impressive. It is there when needed, however you won't be humming along to it or anything. In fact, while playing through the game, I hardly noticed it, even during boss fights. I found myself completely tuning it out. It does its job of setting the tone, however not much else can be said about it. Unlike the music though, the sound effects are great. Each hit feels and sounds impactful. As this is a pretty violent action game, having all sorts of sound effects, they need to be on point. Every slice, jump, and blast sounds great. Each finisher on an enemy or a boss sounds satisfying and visceral. They are really well done and impactful. Darksiders, while still a good game, shows its age in its design and mechanics. There are plenty of rough points that take away from the experience and many level design choices that are convoluted and frustrating. However, the characters, voice acting, and setting are all very unique and interesting. If you hadn't had a chance to play it and were interested, I would recommend at least trying the game. If someone has it on their Steam, go play it. If someone has it on the console, try it. It can be very hit or miss and does take a while to really get going. But I want to hear your thoughts on the game. Have you played Darksiders? Who's your favorite horseman? Let me know. It's a conversation and I love speaking with you. And don't forget, if you're a fan of gaming, consider striking that subscribe button and hitting the bell. Also, tune in next week for Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition, where we see if they improved upon what they started or just did more of the same. This is Mattmade, and I will see you tomorrow.